Let's talk to the Times Northern sports correspondent Martin Hardy and the Daily Mail's chief sports feature writer Riyadh Al-Samarrai. On back pages tonight, we'll start with a look at the front of the Telegraph sports supplement, which simply says the hurt goes on. Martin, are you glass half full or glass half empty?
I think that's an oversimplification. I think part of the reason we always end up in this situation is because there is a huge oversimplification on English football. We like the quick fix, somebody to say, well, you know, if we do X, we will win something in the next tournament. I think if you assess what Gareth Southgate has done, and he's done a superb job in 8 years, already he's facing criticism tonight. I was listening to the radio early on with a phone in, and one fan said the only credit you give Gareth Southgate was to say he steadied the ship. Now, that's after Sam Allardyce, Roy Hodgson, Capello, McLaren, this era of real underachievement. Gareth Southgate didn't steady the ship. Gareth Southgate built the ship and set sail with English football again. And from nowhere, the country now has a back-to-back European Championships final, a World Cup semi-final, World Cup quarter-final. The bigger question, which probably won't get asked, is why England lost. And Gareth Southgate has said it, Roy Keane and Gary Neville have said it tonight. They can't look after the ball well enough at the very, very highest level of English football. And until I get so sick of that awful Lightning Seed song, until that English arrogance of it's coming home, people kind of move beyond that and say, actually, we don't have a style of football. Let's look at what we do at the junior levels throughout the country. Let's make sure we have decent pitches, not some of the cabbage patches young lads and girls play on. The infrastructure throughout the country is not good enough. The style of play isn't good enough. And that you still get under 9s and a 10. Sorry, I'm going off on a tangent here, but you still get under 9s and a 10 coaches obsessed with winning games of football. So the style and the development of the players suffers as a result of that. The last time I was on, I said about how many times a good team should pass the ball. It should be 500, and your pass success rate should be 85, 90%. And that's what Spain did tonight. 489 successful passes, 90%. England passed the ball successfully 229 times, 78% success rate. Couldn't get the ball, and when they got it, they panicked and lost it. And that is a problem that has been affecting English teams for decades and decades, and nothing's done about it.
Dream is over, says the Mirror. How far do you agree with what Martin says, Riyadh?
Well, I think it's an excellent analysis of the root problem. My primary instinct is when we have these moments, these inquests every 2 years, I do tend to lean towards not believing that conclusions should be wildly sweeping. England made it to a final. They were a better night away from knighting Gareth Southgate, and instead, you know, my social media feed is full of people demanding him be put on the next bus to the Tower. It gets incredibly reactionary. I find it very tiresome. I think, and going to Martin's point about some of the managers that have been before, whether it's Roy, Sven, Capello, Steve McLaren, Kevin Keegan, whatever, go back as far as you want, all the way to Alf Ramsey. We need to look at what Gareth Southgate has done, where they were, where they are. I think people owe him an enormous amount of gratitude for the progress we've seen. Now, all of that being said, it's been a strong tournament outcome. Reaching a final is never a bad result. Other teams are allowed to be better. Spain were better. They were better in the final. They were better over the course of the tournament. Look at who they've beaten: France, Germany, Italy, Croatia, England in the final. There is no denying Spain are the rightful winners of this tournament. England haven't performed terribly well, but they've made a final. You set that against the history of this team, and I find it absolutely astonishing that the criticism of Southgate is so frenzied and so fevered. Now, within all of that, how have they played? Not terribly good. Do we agree with all of the tactical decisions? No, obviously not. But when I look at this England tournament, yes, I see the structural issues, the problems around the system. Could he have done things differently, etc.? But I still think predominantly it's because the big players didn't perform. I don't think Harry Kane's performed throughout the tournament anywhere close to his potential. I don't think Jude Bellingham has, notwithstanding the goal against Slovakia. Phil Foden hasn't performed other than a good performance against the Netherlands. I think that is a far more fundamental issue here, beyond how England have been set up, how they've been managed.
Martin and Riyadh both very eloquently put. I'm going to take a short commercial break, and when we come back, we'll look at more of the back pages and we'll reflect on whether Southgate's been unfairly criticised and where he goes from here. That's Gareth Southgate. There's a picture of him on the back of the Mail, consoling Mark Gay and Jude Bellingham. Heartbroken is the headline. Just want to mention a piece in The Guardian by Jonathan Liu, friend of Backpages tonight. I'm going to read you a little bit of what he says. England tried to burgle this tournament, to ram raid it and dive through the plate glass and leave with the trophy smuggled under one arm. Time and again, they pushed open the train doors just as they were about to close. Against less resolute opponents, it might even have been enough here. Instead, there is a familiarity to this failure, a tale of hopes and wishes where a plan was badly needed. Did Southgate not have a plan, Martin?
No, I disagree with Johnny there. I think Gareth Southgate planned this meticulously. The FA chain went through that DNA process, with which Gareth was heavily involved with. People like Dan Ashworth were kind of fed up with England. You know, there's maybe generations of fans going bananas on social media who can't remember England not qualifying for major competitions or leaving with their tails between the legs at the group stage. So there's been this fundamental, incredible level of planning on everything, down to the tiny details of penalties, of players, of fitness. So I think I don't think that's right. I don't think this is about planning. This is about, in the same piece Johnny does mention, by 35 minutes, England players are printing pictures of the ball and pinning them to trees as if trying to find a lost cat. That's the crux of this issue here. The FA have planned for England to do better in tournaments, which they've done, and it's worked very well. They haven't planned for what they do when they come up against a good team in a final who keeps the ball lots, and that's what let the team down today. Gareth went through the tactical details afterwards of saying, well, if we'd done that, it would have left us short in the centre midfield. If we'd done that, we would have let their two very dangerous young wide forwards run amok. And to be fair, Luke Shaw has a really good first half, but again has played, this is his first start since February. He switched, I'm not sure if he switched off at the start of the second half, but from his side, the goal is created. He's not fit enough. I think Harry Kane was interviewed tonight, was asked, have you had a back injury through the tournament? And he wouldn't answer the question. As Gareth Southgate said, that Jude Bellingham looked out on his feet. So there was certainly a physicality issue for the players. But as Gareth Southgate also said, and come back to Keane and Neville said the same, if you're the team chasing the ball all the time, it's exhausting. And England looked tired and more tired. Yes, I think we would all have liked that maybe the breaks to have been taken off a little bit, maybe earlier in the tournament. Maybe if that happens, England aren't in the final. But even in the interview, Gareth Southgate said himself there, which he seemed quite flummoxed by, why when it's 1-1 they have a throw in, they go backwards. Well, that just could be because they're so not used to having the ball that they want to keep the ball, and the easiest way to do that is to move it backwards rather than to risk the penetrative pass.
You mentioned Palmer. Sorry, Martin. You mentioned Harry Kane. The Sun back page features a photo of Kane with his head in his hands and says, "Will Spain never end?" Their headline. Kane, Martin alluded to it, Kane clearly wasn't fully fit. Southgate said he was struggling. Did he play too much football for England in this tournament?
Yeah, it's a really interesting discussion. I was writing about it at the weekend, and I was actually advocating that Kane had to start purely for the aura that he brings to the side. And also I think sometimes we can oversimplify what his impact is. Is he, we want to judge him by weight of goals. We shouldn't forget that he's got 3 goals in this tournament. He's the joint top scorer, but he's clearly been off the pace. He was struggling to the end of the season with Bayern. He's had injuries. He hasn't looked fit here. It really wouldn't surprise anyone, I think, if in the next weeks or months, Kane comes out himself and says that there has been a problem. But kind of going to the point I was making prior to the break, he's not alone in being a big player in that side who hasn't delivered on his potential, whatever that reason might be. I would say the same thing of Jude Bellingham. I'd say it of Phil Foden. I think fundamentally the thing that's really caught England out here is the same thing that caught them out against Italy, the same thing that caught them out against Croatia. It's having that natural ball-playing central midfielder who is comfortable taking the ball in tight space, intense situations. They don't have it yet.
Okay. I'm going to be very unfair to both of you and give you about 10 seconds each just to tell me whether you think Southgate should be still in charge come December and whether he will be. Martin?
I think, looking at his reaction tonight, he looks exhausted and he was very surprised with the hostility that he faced. I don't think he'll go further from here, and I think that's probably the right decision.
Riyadh?
I think he'll go, and I wish it wasn't the case, but the environment isn't right for him to stay. There's too much hostility and ambient noise. I think it's made it impossible for him to continue.
Riyadh, Martin, thank you both very much indeed for being with us.